Sham Sharadava Nalalida Loka Tranaya Karuna Gana Ganatam Sham Sharadava Nalalida Loka Pranaya Karuna Gana Ganatam Prapta Sakalyana Gunanavasya Bande Gora Shri Charanaravrindam Prapta Sakalyana Gunanavasya Bande Gora Shri Charanaravrindam Vande Guru Shri Charanaravrindam Vande Guru Shri Charanaravrindam Vande Guru Shri Charanaravrindam Vande Guru Shri Charanaravrindam Mahaprabhu Kirtana Nitya Gita Vaditramadhyam Manasurasena Mahaprabhuki Romanchakam Pasru Taranga Bhajo Vande Garashi Charanaravrindam Shri Vigrahara Dana Nityanana Shingaratanama Niramajanado Nana Juktasya Bhaktamsya Niyunjatapi Vande Guru Shri Charanaravrindam Chaturvidha Shri Bhagavat Prasada Satana Triptan Hari Bhakta Sangha Chaturvidha Shri Bhagavat Prasada Satana Triptan Kridvaiva Tripte Bhajato Shadeva Vande Guru Shri Charanaravrindam Shiradikama Gavayara Para Madhura Lila Gunarupa Namna Shiradikama Para Madhura Lila Pratikshana Dhanalalupasya Vande Guru Shri Charanaravrindam Vande Guru Shri Charanaravrindam Ne kunjayono Ratikeli Siddhai Jayali Virjukti Apekshaniya Ne kunjayono Ratikeli Siddhai Jayali Tatrati Daksha Ativaravasya Vande Guru Shri Charanaravrindam Tatrati Daksha Vasya Guru Sakcha Dharitena Shamasta Shashri Ruktastatthava Vyataiva Sadhavi Sakya Dharitena Shashri Kintu Prabhavorja Priya eva tasya Vande Guru Shri Charanarvindam Priya eva tasya Vande Tasya Prasada Bhagavat Prasada Yasya Prasadam Nagati Kutapi Yasya Prasada Bhagavat Prasada Yasya Prasadam Nagati Kutapi Dhyayam Stuvam Tasya Yasa Trinsandhyam Vande Guru Shri Charanarvindam Dhyayam Stuvam Tasya Yasatrin Sandhyam Vande Guru Shri Charanarvindam Vande Guru Shri Charanarvindam Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Nama Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namaste Sarasvate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunavadi Pachatya Deshatarine Namaste Sarasvate Deve Gauravani Shunavadi Pachata Dishata Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Shri Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Shri Chaitanya Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Bol, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Yaraya Nama Krishna, Jadavaya Nama, Jadavaya Madhavaya Keshavaya Namaha, Gopal Govindaram Shri Madhusudan, Giridhari Gopinath Madana Mohan, Shri Chaitanya Nityananda, Shri Advaita Sita. Hare Guru Vaishnava Bhagavata Gita. Shri Rupa Sanatan Bhattaraguna. Shri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Dasaraguna. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama. Shri Radha, Nila Madhava Radha, Nila Madhava Radhe, Radha, Radha. Jayo Jagannath, Jayo Baladeva, Jayo Subhadrama, Jayo Sudarshan Chakra. Subhadrama. Jaya Sitaram, Jaya Sitaram, Sitaram, Jaya Lakshman Hanuman. Sitaram, Sitaram. Nitai Gaura Haribo, Haribo, Haribo. Nitai Gaur Haribo, 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 Nitai Gaura Premanande Haribo. Jai Vishapara Paramsa Pravajaka-charya Suttara Saraswati Divine Grace. Abhacharabhinda Bhakti Viranta Swami Maharaj Shri Prabhupada ki jai. ISKCON Pratishta Viviti Samstapak Acharya Vaishnav Siramani Parita Pavana Srila Prabhupada Ji Maharaj ki jai. Shri Gauriya Guru Vargapati Udhara ki jai. Shri Rupa Sanatana Bhatta Raghunath Shri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Das Guna Sat Goswami Prabhu ki jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ji ki jai. Jayananta Kuti Vishnu Vrindi ki jai. Prem se kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrindi ki jai. Jai Param Dayal Shri Nityananda Prabhu ki jai. Jai Premanama Sankirtaneka Janaka Prima Purushottama Shri Sachinandana Shriman Gauranga Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Gaura Hari Mahavrana Avatar ki jai. Golokera Pramadhan Harinam Sankirtan Jaga ki jai. Jugu Dharma Hare Krishna Mahamantra ki jai. Brihat Nidanga Transcendental Book Distribution Seva ki jai. Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopina Radha Kund Syama Kund Giriraj Govardhan ki jai. Shri Vrajabhum Vrindavan Mathur Dham ki jai. Deloship Shri Radha Nila Madhava ki jai. Shri Mayapur Navadvip Eka Chakra Dham ki jai. Parama Karuna Shri Gaur Nitai ki jai. Shri Purushottama Ketra Jagannath Puri Dham ki jai. Shri Shri Jagannath Swami Baladev Prabhu Smasvatra Devi Sudarshan Chakra Bhagavan ki jai. Bhakti Sarva Vigna Vinashana Kana Shingare Bhagavan ki jai. Jaganga Mai Jamuna Mai ki jai. Tulasi Maharani Vrindi Devi Bhakti Devi ki jai. Shri Mathura Rani ki jai. Shamaveta Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Nitai Gaurari Premanande Haribo. All glory to the Sambhali bodies. All glory to the Sambhali bodies. All glory to the Sambhali bodies. All glories, all glories, all glories to Shri Shri Guru Shri Gauranga Guru Hari.
Namaste Narasimhaya. Yato yato yamita to nasimha. Yato yato yamita to nasimha. Bahe nasimha hridaye nasimha. Narasimhamadim sharanam prapadye. Tavakarakamalavarena-kam adbhuta shringa Lalita hiranyakashipu tanubringa Keshavadrita narahari rupa Jai Jagadish Hare Jai Jagadish Hare Jai Jagadish Hare Keshavadrita narahari rupa Jai Jagadish Hare Jai Jagadish Hare Jai Jagadish Hare Jaya Jaya Nashingadev, 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 Jaya Narashingadev. Jaya Prahlad Maharaj, Prahlad Maharaj, Prahlad Maharaj, Jaya Prahlad Maharaj. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada.
Shri Vrindai Tulasi Bai Priyaye Kesava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Pradi Devi Shatavataye Namo Namaha. Vrindaye Tulasi Bai Priyaye Kesava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Pradi Devi Shatavataye Namo Namaha. Vrindaye Tulasi Devai Priyaye Kesava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Pradi Devi Shatavataye Namo Namaha. Shrimati Tulasi Maharani Vrinda Devi ki Jai.
Namo Namaha Tulasi Krishna Preyasi Namo Namaha
Tulasi Krishna Preyasi Namo Namaha.
Radha Krishna Seva Pavo Eya Bilasi
Radha Krishna Seva Pavo Eya Bilasi.
Radha Krishna Seva Pavo Eya Bilasi
Radha Krishna Seva Pavo Eya Bilasi.
Tomar Shananalo Tara Bancha Purna
Je tomara sharanala Taravancha Purna.
Kripa Kori Koro Tare Vrindavanasi
Tumi kripa kare karatare Vrindavanavasi.
Murae Abhilas Vilas Kunja Diyoba
Morae Avila Vilas Kunje Diyava.
Nayane Dibosada Ugala Rupadasi
Aminayane Rivasada Jugala Ruparasi.
Eini Vedana Doro Sakirana Ugata Koro
Ene Vedana Dara Sakirano Katakara.
Devadikara Diye Koro Nijadasi Tume
Sevayadhikara diye karani jadasi.
Tume Sevadikara Diye Koro Nijadasi
Sevayadhikara diye karani jadasi.
Dina Krishna Das Koi Jena Mura
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 Shri Radha Govinda Preme Sada Jigravasi
Shri Radha Govinda Preme Sada Jinavasi
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 Tulasi Krishna Priyasi Namo Nama
Tulasi Krishna Priyasi Namo Namah
Yani Kani Cha Papani Brahma Hatyadhikani Cha Tani Tani Pranashanti Pradakshina Pade Pade
Yani Kani Sa Papani Brahma Hatyadhikani Sa Tani Tani Pranasanti Pradakshina Pade Pade
Yani Kani Cha Papani Brahma Hatyadhikani Cha Tani Tani Pranashanti Pradakshina Pade Pade
Yani Kani Sa Papani Brahma Hatyadhikani Sa Tani Tani Pranasanti Pradakshina Pade Pade
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama
Jaya Tulsi Maharani Jaya Tulsi Maharani Jaya Tulsi Maharani Jaya Tulsi Maharani
Jaya Tulsi Maharani Jaya Tulsi Maharani Tulsi Maharani Jaya Tulsi Maharani
Jaya Vrinda Devi Vrinda Devi Vrinda Devi Jaya Vrinda Devi
Jaya Vrinda Devi Jaya Vrinda Devi Jaya Vrinda Devi Jaya Vrinda Devi
Nitai Gaura Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Nitai Gaura Hari Bol
Nitai Gaura Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Nitai Gaura Hari Bol
Jaya Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada
Jaya Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada
Jaya Jaya Gurudev 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 Jaya Jaya Gurudev
Jaya Jaya Gurudev 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 Jaya Jaya Gurudev Shri Vrindai Tulasi Bai Priyaya Kesava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Prade Devi Satavataye Namo Namaha Vrindai Tulasi Bai Priyaya Kesava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Prade Devi Satavataye Namo Namaha Vrindayai Tulasi Bai Priyayai Kesava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Prade Devi Satavataye Namo Namaha Jai Srimati Tulasi Maharani Vrinda Devi Ki Jai. Oh Tulasi, beloved Krishna, I bow before you again and again.
My desire is fulfilled.
Service of Shri Radha Krishna. We will take shelter of you as wishes fulfilled. Bestow your mercy upon him, you make him resident of Vrindavana. My desire is that you also grant me a residence of pleasure groves of Sri Vrindavan Dham. Thus within my vision I will always behold the beautiful pastimes of Radha and Krishna. I beg you to make me a follower of Kaveh of Raj. Please give me the privilege of devotional service and make me your own maid servant. This very fallen and lowly servant of Krishna praise. May I always see me love Shri Radha and Govind. Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Sikha Stakam Ki Jai. Chaito Dharmanamajanam Baba Mahada Magninim Vapanam Shri Akari Vachandika Vitaranam Vidya Vadu Jivanam Anandam Buddhivardhanam Patiparam Purnamruta Shradanam Sarvatma Snam Param Parabhijayate Shri Krishna Sankirtanam Nam Namakari Maudha Nida Sarva Shaktis Tatra Pitani Amita Shmarane Nakala Itadrushi Tava Kripaya Bhavan Mamapi Durdhaivam Idrishamya Janina Nuraga Trinarapi Sunichena Tarorapi Saishnana Amanina Mahina Itaniya Sadari Nadhanam Najanam Yasundari Kavitam Bhajagari Shakamayi Mama Janmane Janmanishari Bhavatar Bhakti Rahituki Twai Oinandatanu Jakinkaram Patitamam Bishame Babambudo Kripaya Tava Pada Pankaja Sitaduli Sadrisham Vichintaya Nayanam Galora Shrudharaya Vadinam Gade Gadarudaya Gira Pulakairi Chitam Vapukara Tavanama Grahane Bhavisati Juga Itam Nimishena Chakrusha Prarusa Itam Shunya Itam Jagata Sarvam Govinda Virahiname Asri Shabapa Daratam Pinashtumam Adarshanan Marmahatam Karotuva Jata Tathava Vidadhatulam Poto Mat Pranatastu Saivana Paraha Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Shri Kristakam Ki Jai Namo Mahavarannaya Krishna Prema Pradayati Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namine Gaurate Namaha. Glory to the Shri Krishna Sankirtana, which cleanses the heart of all the dust accumulated for years and extinguishes the fiery condition of life of repeated birth and death. This Sankirtan moment is the prime benediction for humanity at large, because it spreads the rays of the benediction moon. It is the life of all transcendental knowledge. It increases the ocean of transcendental bliss and enables us to fully taste the nectar for which we're always anxious. O my Lord, your holy name alone can render all benediction to living beings. And thus you have hundreds and millions of names like Krishna and Govind. In these transcendental names, you have invested all your transcendental energies. There are not even hard and fast rules for chanting these names. O my Lord, out of kindness, you enable us to easily approach you by holy names. But I'm so unfortunate that I have no attraction for them. Once you chant the holy name of the Lord in a humble state of mind, thinking oneself lower than straw in the street, one should be more tolerant than a tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige, and should be ready to offer all respect to others. In such state of mind, one can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly. O Almighty Lord, I have no desire to accumulate wealth, nor do I desire beautiful women, nor do I want any number of followers. I only want your cause of devotional service, birth after birth. O son of Maharaj Nanda Krishna, I am your eternal servitor. Yet some or other I am fallen in this ocean of birth and death. Please pick me up from this ocean of death and place me as one of the atoms at your lotus feet. O my Lord, when will my eyes be decorated with tears of love flowing constantly when I chant your holy name? When will my voice choke up? And will the hairs of my body stand on end at the recitation of your name? O Govinda, feeling your separation, I am considering one moment to be like 12 years or more. Tears are flowing from my eyes like torrents of rain, and I feel all vacant in the world in your absence. I know no one but Krishna is my Lord, and it should remain so. even if it handles me roughly by his embrace, or makes me broken-hearted by not being present before me. He is completely free to do anything and everything, for he is my worshipful Lord, unconditionally. Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Sri Krishna Kam Ki Jai. Krishna Chaitanya. There are 10 offenses in matter of chanting the holy name of the Lord that should be avoided. They are as follows. 1. Blaspheme the devotees who dedicate their life for propagating the holy name of the Lord. 2. To consider the names of demigods, Lord Shiva and Lord Brahma, to be equal to or independent of the name Lord Vishnu. 3. To disobey the orders of the spiritual master. 4. To blaspheme the Vedic literatures or literatures and the sons of Vedic version. 5. To consider the glories of chanting Hare Krishna to be imagination. 6. To give some interpretation to the holy name of the Lord. 7. To commit sinful activities on the strength of chanting the holy name of the Lord. 8. To consider the chanting of Hare Krishna as one of the auspicious ritualistic activities which are offered in Vedas as fruitive activities, karma kanda. 9. To instruct the faithless person about the glories of the holy name. And 10. To not have complete faith in chanting the holy names and to maintain material attachments, even of understanding so many instructions in this matter. It's also an offense to be inattentive while chanting. Every devotee who claims to be Vaishnava must carefully guard against 10 offenses in order to quickly achieve the desired success. Krishna Prema. Now let us offer our most humble obeisances unto all the Vaishnavas, devotees of the Lord. They are just like desire trees. They can fulfill the desires of everyone, and they are full of compassion for the fallen conditioned souls. Jai Vancha Kalpatarvyacha Kripa Sindhu Vyaivacha Paritanam Pavanibhyo Vaishnavibhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Ananta Kuti Vaishnavrinda Ki Jai. Shri Mangala Charanya Guru Pranam Ki Jai. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnanandana Salakaya Chaturmilitam Dena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Sthapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Karamayam Dharati Swapantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Juta Padakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavamcha Shri Rupam Sagajatam Sahagana Raghunathavitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Sadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Sri Vishakam Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Samiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunavadi Vasakyari Satarine Namaho Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati
Namini Shivasavani Devi Taya Kripadaya Krishna Sambandha Vijnana Taya Bhavati Madhu Ujvala Primadya Shri
Namaste Gauravani Srimurtaye Nandarine Rupanuga Virupa Pusidanta Dantaharine Namo Guru Vishwaraya Satya Viragya Murtaye Vibrahambara Sambodhe Parapujayate Namaha Namo Bhakti-vinodaya Satchidanandanamine Gora Shakti Swarupaya Rupamagavadayate Gora Vidyabhamusvam Nirdesha Sajana Priya Vaishnava Sarvabhauma Sri Jagannathaya Te Namaha Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyaivacha
Patitam Pavani Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha
Namo
Namaha Prema Pradayate Krishna Krishna Chaitanya Namne Guru Chuse Namaha Vanchakalpatu Swarupakam Bhaktavataram Bhaktakyam Namami Bhakti Sakritam Hey Krishna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Namaste Jayatam Suratur Pangur Mama Madhavatir Gati Matsarva Swapadam Bojo Radha Madana Mohano Divyadvindaranya Kalpadramadaha Srimad Ratnagara Simhasanastito Srimad Radha Srila Govinda Devo Prastali Bihi Sevyamanu Smarami Shiman Rasa Rasarambi Sivata Tatastita Karasan Venuswaner Gopir Gopinatak Sriyestuna Tapta Kanchana Gaurang Gayi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanastute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Shri Guru Pranama prayers ki jai, Shri Brahma Samhita ki jai, Ishwara Parama Krishna Sachitananda Vigraha Nadiradir Govinda Sarva Karana Karanam Chintamani Prakara Sadma Sukalpa Riksha Laksha Vrite Susarabhira Vipaliyantam Lakshmi Sahasra Satasambrahma Sevyamanam Govinda Madi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Venam Kunandam Aravinda Taksham Barhavatam Samasitam Buddha Sundarangam Kandarpa Kotikamaniya Visesa Sobam Govinda Madi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Lola Chandra Kalasadvan Amalyavam Sri Ratnam Gadam Pranay Kili Kilavilasam Shyamam Tribanga Lalita Niyata Prakasam Govinda Madi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Angani Yasya Sakulendriya Vrittimanti Yasyanti Bhanti Parayanti Kalajanti Ananda Chinmaya Sadujvala Vigrahasya Govinda Madi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Advaitam Achyutam Anadim Ananta Rupam Adyam Purana Purusham Navayovanam Cha Vedesa Durlabam Adurlabam Atma Bhakto Govinda Madi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Pantastakoti Satavatsara Sampragamyo Vayora Tapi Manaso Muni Pungamanam So Pyastiyat Prapadasimya Vichintya Tatve Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Ekopya Sora Chayatam Jagananda Kotim Yas Chaktirasti Jagadanda Chayadanta Andantarasta Paramanu Chayantarastam Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yad Bhava Bhavita Dio Manajastataiva Samprapya Rupa Mahimasana Yanabusa Suktarya Mevin Nigamat Pratitaistuvanti Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Ananda Chinmaya Rasa Pratibhavita Bistabirya Evan Nijarupa Dayakalabi Koloka Evan Vasata Kilat Bhuto Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Premanjana Churita Bhakti Vilochanena Santaksa Deva Hidesu Vilokayanti Yam Samasundaram Achintya Gunaswarupam Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Ramadi Murti Sukalani Menatistana Avatar Makarod Bhuvanesa Kintu Krishna Swayam Samabhavat Paramam Pumanyo Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yasya Prabha Prabhavato Jagaranda Koti Kotis Vasesa Vasudati Vibhuti Brinam Tad Brahman Niskalamanantam Sesa Bhutam Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Mayahi Yasya Jagaranda Satani Sute Trigunya Tad Visaya Veda Vitaya Manam Sadvavalambi Parasatvam Visuddha Sattvam Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Ananda Chinmaya Rasat Mataya Manasu Yaprani Nam Pratifalam Smaratam Upetya Lilaya Tena Bhuvanani Jaya Jasram Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Goloka Namni Nijitamni Talechatasya Devi Mahesa Aditama Sute Suteshu Te Prabhavani Chaya Vitastayena Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Shristista Tipalaya Sada Vasaktireka Shaye Vyasya Bhuvanani Vivarti Durga Ischana Rupamapi Yasya Chichesta Tesa Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Kshiram Yata Dadi Vikara Visesa Yoga Sanjayate Nahita Tapita Kasti Hetu Yasambhutama Titata Samapaitikar Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Departure Devita Santaram Abhyapetya Dipayate Vitahita Samana Dharma Yastadrik Eva Hicha Vishnu Tayavibhati Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yakarna Narnava Jale Bhajatisma Yoga Nidram Ananta Jagaranda Saroma Kupaha Dhara Shakti Mavalamya Param Swamurtim Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yasyaika Nisvasita Kalamatavalamya Jivanti Loma Vilaja Jagaranda Nataha Vishnu Mahansa Yasya Kalaviseso Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Basmanya Tasma Sakalesa Nijesa Teja Sriyam Kiyat Prakatayata Pitadvatatra Brahmaya Esa Jagadanda Vidana Karta Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yatpada Palava Yugam Vinidayakam Badwande Pranamasamayesa Ganadi Raja Vignan Vihantam Alamasi Jagatrayasya Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Agnir Mahiga Ganamambu Marudisascha Kalas Tatatma Manasiti Jagatrayani Yasmad Bhavanti Vibhavanti Visanti Amcha Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yaschak Suresa Savita Sakalagrahanam Raja Samasta Suramurti Rasesa Tejaha Yasya Gaya Brahmati Sambrita Kala Chakro Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Dharmota Baba Nichaya Sutayasta Pamsi Brahmadi Kita Patagava Deyasta Jivaha Yadata Matru Baba Kadapa Baba Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yastrinda Gopa Matavendra Mahoswa Karma Bandhana Rupa Valabhajana Matanoti Karmani Nirda Hatikintu Chabakti Bhajam Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yam Kroda Kama Sahaja Pranayadi Biti Batsaya Moha Gurugora Vasavya Bhavai Sanchintya Tasya Sadrisim Tanam Apurete Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Shriya Kanta Kanta Parama Purishat Kalpatarva Dumad Munis Dunshamani Ganama Itoyam Amritam Kata Ganam Natyam Gamanam Apivam Sipriyasaki Chiranandam Jyoti Param Apitada Svadyam Apichasa Yatra Shiradi Bhisavati Shirabi Bhyasta Sumahan Nimesar Dakyo Vavrajati Nahiyatrapi Samaya Braje Srita Dipam Tamaham Ihil Kulakam Itiyam Vidantas Te Santakshati Virachara Katipaye Ishwara Parama Krishna Sachitananda Vigraha Nadi Radhi Govindam Sarva Kanarma Jai Shri Brahmasamita Ki Jai Shri Guru Vastika prayers Ki Jai. A spiritual master is receiving benediction from the ocean of mercy, just as a cloud pours water on a forest fire to extinguish it. So the spiritual master delivers the materially afflicted world by extinguishing the blazing fire of material existence. Out from my respectful basis unto lotus feet is such a spiritual master, who is an ocean of auspicious qualities, chanting the holy name, dancing in ecstasy, singing and playing musical instruments. The spiritual master is always gladdened by the Sankirtan movement of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, because he is relishing the mellows of pure devotion within his mind. Sometimes his hair stands on end, he feels quivering in his body, and tears flow from his eyes like waves. From my respectful obeisance unto lotus feet is such a spiritual master. The spiritual master is always engaged in the temple worship of Shri Sri Radha and Krishna. He also engages his disciples in such worship. They dress the deities in beautiful clothes and ornaments, clean their temple, and perform other similar worship of the Lord. From my respectful obeisance unto lotus feet is such a spiritual master. The spiritual master is always offering Krishna 4 kinds of delicious food, analyzes that which is licked, chewed, drunk, and sucked. When the spiritual master sees that the devotees are satisfied by eating Bhagavad Prasada, he is satisfied. From my respectful obeisance unto lotus feet is such a spiritual master. The spiritual master is always eager to hear and chant about the unlimited conjugal pastimes of Radhika and Madhava and their qualities, names, and forms. The spiritual master aspires to realities at every moment. From my respectful obeisance unto lotus feet is such spiritual master. A spiritual master is very dear because he is expert in assisting the gopis who at different times make different tasteful arrangements for the perfection of Radha and Krishna's conjugal loving affairs within the groves of Vrindavana. From my most humble obeisance unto the lotus feet is such a spiritual master. The spiritual master is to be honored as much as the Supreme Lord because he is the most confidential servant to the Lord. This is acknowledged in all revealed scriptures and followed by all authorities. Therefore, from my respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet is such a spiritual master who is a bona fide representative of Sri Hare Krishna. By the mercy of the spiritual master, one receives the benediction of Krishna. Without the grace of the spiritual master, one cannot make any advancement. Therefore, I should always remember and praise the spiritual master at least 3 times a day. I should offer my respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet of my spiritual master, his divine grace. A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 2. Text number 4. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Samuhurtam Abhut Tustim Krishnangri Sudaya Vrisham Trivrena Bhakti Yogina Nimagna Sadhu Nivritaha Sa Udava Muhurtam. For a moment, Abhut became Tusnim, dead silent. Krishna Angri, the lotus feet of the Lord, Sudaya, by the nectar. Brisham, well matured. Tivrena, by very strong. Bhakti Yogina, devotional service. Nimagna, absorbed in. Sadhu, good. Nivrita, fully in love. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. For a moment, he remained dead silent, and his body did not move. He became absorbed in the nectar of remembering the Lord's lotus feet in devotional ecstasy, and he appeared to be going increasingly deeper into that ecstasy. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. On the inquiry by Vidura about Krishna, Uddhava appeared to be awakened from slumber. He appeared to regret that he had forgotten the lotus feet of the Lord. Thus he again remembered the lotus feet of the Lord and remembered all his transcendental loving service unto him. And by so doing, he felt the same ecstasy that he used to feel in the presence of the Lord. Because the Lord is absolute, there's no difference between his remembrance and his personal presence. Thus Uddhava remained completely silent for a moment, but then he appeared to be going deeper and deeper into ecstasy. Feelings of ecstasy are displayed by highly advanced devotees of the Lord. There are 8 kinds of transcendental changes in the body: tears, shivering of the body, perspiration, restlessness, throbbing, choking of the throat, etc., and all were manifested by Uddhava in the presence of Vidura. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. For a moment he remained dead silent, and his body did not move. He became absorbed in the nectar of remembering the Lord's lotus feet in devotional ecstasy, and he appeared to be going increasingly deeper into that ecstasy. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. So this discussion between Vidura and Uddhava, and just like the discussion between Vidura and Maitreya Muni, is very important for devotees to hear, because when one associates with a person superior in spiritual knowledge and practice, not knowledge alone is not enough, it has to be practiced also properly, then the questions and answers become very, let's say, transcendentally enthusiastic and enthusing. So therefore, Uddhava apparently was taking rest in a sense, and he immediately perks up because there's one thought in his mind, that is to please the Lord. That is to, and how do you please the Lord? By engaging in devotional service sincerely. And what does that do? That gives one remembrance of all the service that they have performed for the Lord. And just like in the Ishopanishad it says, Vayar Anilam Amritam Atedam Basmantam Sarinam Om Kratu Smara Kritam Smara Kratu Smara Kritam Smara. So the devotee prays near the moment of death that let the air in my breath or my body merge into the totality of the air, let my body be burned to ashes. And now, my Lord, please remember everything that I've done for you. So, in other words, if one does nothing for the Lord, nothing for Krishna to remember. But if one engages their life fully in Krishna consciousness, then not only can one remember everything they did for the Lord, but the Lord also has a note of everything we've done. So therefore, in that state of mind, one is ready to leave their body and go back to Godhead. So, thus he again remembered the lotus feet of the Lord and remembered all his transcendental loving service unto him. So, remembering the lotus feet of the Lord and remembering all the transcendental service that Uddhava has done for the Lord gives him an ecstatic feeling of transcendental love for the Lord. So he remembered all his transcendental loving service unto him, and by so doing he felt the same ecstasy that he used to feel in the presence of the Lord. So that means, as Prabhupada says in the next sentence, because the Lord is absolute, there's no difference between his remembrance and his personal presence. So that's the main point. The devotee never actually leaves the association of his guru or gurus and Krishna, because the guru and Krishna live in their statements And that when the devotee remembers those statements, just like Krishna spoke the entire Bhagavad Gita, and then pure devotees of the Lord always repeat the same knowledge, and that way, and then it's bolstered or strengthened by devotional service, sincere devotional service. So therefore, one feels the presence of the Lord always. So because the Lord is absolute, there's no difference between his remembrance and his personal presence. So remembering Krishna is associating with Krishna, and that should be the meditation of a devotee. Not that we meditate on some light or meditate on nothing, or meditate on sense gratification, whatever. That's not meditation. Meditation is meditation on the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who has distinct qualities and distinct bodily, let's say, signs of his being the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Meditating on all those details and meditating on service rendered to the Lord with love and devotion, and meditating on so many classes that one has heard, and so many sankirtans that one has gone out to. All these things leads to transcendental emotions and feelings of ecstasy. So it says, feelings of ecstasy. Oh, it says, thus Uddhava remained completely silent for a moment, but then he appeared to be going deeper and deeper into ecstasy. Now, several times devotees have witnessed Prabhupada going into deeper and deeper states of ecstasy. And they're recorded on YouTube. You can see them, or at least hear about them from devotees' remembrances. So, but it's a rare thing because devotees, more pure devotees, rarely will manifest those symptoms in public. They're not trying to impress people, but sometimes they can't hold back those feelings of love and devotion for Krishna, and in rare occasions they may manifest those in front of devotees. So it says, feelings of ecstasy are displayed by highly advanced devotees of the Lord. There are 8 kinds of transcendental changes in the body: tears, shivering of the body, perspiration, restlessness, throbbing, choking of the throat, etc. And all were manifested by Uddhava in the presence of Vidura. So, the manifestation of these transcendental, let's say, signs of feelings of ecstasy is something confidential. It's not something that one does as a show for the public. The devotee is more concerned about meditating on practical service to the Lord. But sometimes, in the case of Prabhupada and other transcendental devotees, they may go into these deep states of ecstasy because they're remembering something about Krishna. We cannot imitate this. If we do that, we become a sahaja, these false devotees who go around and try and artificially manifest these states and to make an impression on the people. We're not trying to make impressions on the people by cheap representations of ecstasy. But if we dance and chant in sincerely, then people will see the ecstatic nature of chanting the holy name and worshiping Krishna. So they will also engage in chanting and dancing. We see that even on Sankirtan. Sometimes people see us chanting very, very enthusiastically, so they start chanting and dancing also. So that is all positive. But then tears and swooning and fainting and shivering in the body and perspiration, restlessness, throbbing, choking your throat, this would just basically surprise people, and they wouldn't understand what's going on. They think that someone is having a heart attack or something. So this is a very confidential thing. Okay. Not only that, there are other symptoms, like Lord Chaitanya manifested them sometimes in deep state of ecstasy. His body transformed. His arms went into his body, and things like that. I mean, that people would be shocked to see anything like that. But actually, that is possible, and but we don't try and emulate that. Our main thing should be simply chant, dance, preach, and give out prasadam and accept prasadam, and regularly hear. The regular hearing is an ecstatic experience, because if we hear a bona fide person speaking, every day we'll learn something new, and every day we get more and more faith in chanting Hare Krishna and engaging in devotional service. So tonight at 5 o'clock, I'm going to give a special lecture on YouTube to a group of people in Atlanta, but anyone can join. It's a Zoom, it's a Chinese Zoom thing. And so I want to talk about what I'm going to talk about tonight, because it's a big subject and it requires even myself, although I've been thinking about this, taking notes and preparing it for a long time, still it's complicated, because it's all about human potential. We don't realize what the human potential actually is, and mainly because of modern education, and because of the fact that people don't take Shastra seriously. They only believe now that science is serious and Shastra is all fairy tales. But for devotees, Shastra is very important. So what is the human potential? Well, this is explained in different places by Srila Prabhupada, but I'm going to begin with what Prabhupada calls television in the heart. And he says that in a morning walk in Los Angeles, December 7th, 1973, it's part of life, comes from life. Prabhupada says, the devotee said, look, modern science has made so many amazing discoveries, and there's airplanes, and there's internet, and there's television, and there's radio, and Prabhupada says, well, there were better telephones. You do not know it. Just like Sanjaya sitting with his master Dhritarashtra and is relaying all the war affairs going on. He asked him, or Dhritarashtra asked him, Kim akurvata Sanjaya? Bhagavad Gita 1.1. What did they do? Meaning, he's asking, what did my sons do on the battle of Kurukshetra? But he, meaning Sanjaya and Dhritarashtra, were sitting in a room in Hastinapur, which is another name for Delhi. And so Prabhupada says, where is that telephone? So there was no telephone then, right? It is television within the heart. He is seeing, Sanjaya is seeing everything and relaying them to Dhritarashtra. So he says, Sanjaya uvacha, Dhritarashtra uvacha. Dhritarashtra inquired, now, after meeting my sons and nephews, what are they doing? And he's relaying, or Sanjaya is relaying. Now Duryodhana is going to see Dronacharya. Dronacharya says like this. Bhismadeva says, how does he say within the room? How is Sanjaya hearing this and relating it in a room in Hastinapur when it's going on hundreds of miles away in Kurukshetra. And Prabhupada says, but do you know that science? No, we don't know that science, and the scientists don't know that science. They reproduce things mechanically or electronically, you see. So previously, scientific material science was only practiced by demons, not by devotees. The devotees had this different science based on transcendental television within the heart, and through purification of the senses by engaging in devotional service. So then again, so in the there's this devotee that says to Prabhupada, December 14, 1975, in a room conversation in Delhi, he says, Rajneesh says the same thing. He says that Krishna and Arjuna did not speak. Krishna simply looked at Arjuna and Arjuna understood. But in order for Dhritarashtra to understand, because he was blind, Sanjaya is speaking and he is explaining everything, and Vyasa has written down that Sanjaya has explained. This is what Rajneesh says like that. So why does Sanjaya say Bhagavanavacha? Prabhupada, no. Sanjaya heard, then he said. So in other words, Prabhupada's correcting him. This is Rajneesh, nonsense guy, so-called Bhagavan. He's talking gibberish, things that don't make any sense at all, don't relate at all to the real Shastric evidence. So then, in a letter to a devotee named Makan Lal, in Mayapur, June 22nd, 1973, Prabhupada says, in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna ordered Arjuna to declare to the whole world that his devotees would never be vanquished. And in the last verse of the Gita, Sanjaya says, wherever there is Krishna and Krishna's pure devotee, Arjuna, there will always be opulence, victory, extraordinary power, and morality. Tatrashi vijayo bhutir dhruva nitir matir mama. But because we are engaged in warfare with the forces of Maya, there will be casualties. Even Arjuna's son Abhimanyu, a 16-year-old boy, was killed at the Battle of Kurukshetra. We should be prepared to protect the deities and always expect Krishna's mercy, because we are always dependent on him, and we cannot do anything on our own without him. So, this is what you would say the culture of Krishna consciousness. Not to think independently, not to think that our salvation is science or modern education or this thing or that thing, or we can know the truth through speculation, but to be completely dependent upon Krishna, and not to create situations ourselves, rather to accept whatever happens as the mercy of the Lord and continue unfazed by devotional service. So, therefore, in another place, So, Prabhupada talks about this mystic television. He says, he's talking to Damodar, Bhakti Swarup Damodar Maharaj, or Dr. Singh, who says, they now have things they did not have before, like telephones, televisions, airplanes, missiles, and many other new discoveries. Srila Prabhupada. There are better telephones that they do not know about. In Bhagavad Gita, Sanjaya demonstrated this when he was sitting with his master, Dhritarashtra, and relating all the affairs that were taking place far away on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. Sanjaya's vision was actually greater than the telephone. It was mystic television. It was television within the heart, for he was sitting in a room far from the battlefield and still seeing everything that was occurring there. In Bhagavad Gita, Dhritarashtra inquired of Sanjaya, "How are my sons and nephews? What are they doing?" Then Sanjaya described how Duryodhana was going to Dronacharya, what Dronacharya was speaking, how Drona was replying, and so on. Even though these activities were too far away to be seen by ordinary eyes, Sanjaya could see and describe them through his mystic power. That is real science. Okay. So, how do we access such a science? Right? So there are whole schools like Harvard, MIT, and so many schools now teaching science. But where is this? How can we access this science? Is it possible? Yes, it is. And we have to simply believe the Shastra. Then we can work toward the goal of what's called revelation. Krishna will reveal to the degree that we have faith in his words, and the hallmark of that faith is that we engage always in devotional service without any material motive. When we do that, then all this science and all the knowledge of Krishna will be revealed to us through discussions with other advanced devotees who simply are repeating what the Shastric evidence says, and also by the example of pure devotees like Srila Prabhupada, and so forth. So, what is the favorable way of accessing this knowledge? Well, Prabhupada explains this in a letter to Jayapataka Maharaj in 1972, and he says, in response to a letter that he received from Jayapataka Maharaj, where Jayapataka Maharaj says, "Well, I'm afraid I think I'm too attached to my service." And Prabhupada's answer is, attachment is normal for everyone. Either we are attached to Krishna or we're attached to Maya. So attachment is normal. But, of course, it's not beneficial if we're attached to Maya, but it's very beneficial if we're attached to Krishna. And then he says, we become attached to Krishna by serving him with determination and love under the guidance of gurus, shiksha, and diksha. Notice he says gurus, plural, shiksha and diksha. And then he says, Krishna becomes pleased and appreciates very much when his devotee is attached to him through regulated devotional service performed with enthusiasm. And then Prabhupada says, the cooperative spirit of working together without argument will lead to success. There it is, the formula for success. The cooperative spirit of working without argument will lead to success. You will please Prabhupada and Krishna by finishing the service with excellence. So when he says Prabhupada is referring to his guru, right? You will please Prabhupada and Krishna by finishing the service with excellence. But it also refers to Prabhupada himself. But Prabhupada is speaking as the disciple of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Maharaj. So, you will please Prabhupada and Krishna by finishing the service with excellence. In other words, what does that mean exactly? Well, he explains that in a letter to a devotee named Nityananda on 25th November 1972. And in that letter it says, so maybe there is a little fighting amongst yourselves. That is natural. But you are advanced disciple. Don't be disturbed by these things. Actually, I want that householders shall manage the temples, because they have got propensity to manage things, and they want to take responsibility, and they will not go away. Brahmachari, householder, it doesn't matter. But householders are doing nicely all over the world. Why the others shall resent householders in your temple? So this was a statement based on certain controversies that evolved early on in ISKCON, where the brahmacharis developed and sannyasis developed a certain disdain for the grihastas because they thought they were all in Maya. Why the others shall resent householders in your temple? That is not reasonable. This attitude of changing this, changing that, if there is some small thing to make it something very big or great, changing the leaders three times every week, these things are going on. I know. This is not at all good attitude. That if by adjustment, this and that, changing everything, I may create the perfect combination and everything will be all right. So here's the main statement Prabhupada makes. I am more impressed if someone has opened one center and that he has stayed there tightly and developed nicely, not going away whimsically. So you have been leader at New Orleans Temple for a long time. You are the pioneer there. So why you should be whimsically discharged? Only the GBC man shall be able to make these changes, not any so-called secret meeting of devotees. Why they have misunderstood these things? If they have objection, they must lodge it with their GBC, and differences must be discussed openly amongst ourselves, not in secret meetings. We are Vaishnava devotees, not politicians. So, these things must be stopped. Plotting. Plotting means making plans how to overthrow someone. Right? Your merit stands far above theirs. You have done some tangible work to please me by spreading this Krishna consciousness message in New Orleans. That is the test. Let them do something first, then we shall see what is their criticism. Simply criticizing and no work, that is the business of inferior men. So do not be disturbed by them. Go on with your work, increasing more and more. Never mind the jackals howl. Whoa. What a letter. So, and he says, we are Vaishnava devotees, not politicians. We don't engage in plotting. And we're not going to change things whimsically. Right. Okay, so in another place, Prabhupada makes some other points that are very important. So he says, he says, reform others not by criticizing, but by friendly behavior. If you are following regulated principles, why you will not cooperate? This is an amazing statement by Prabhupada. People claim they're following the regulated principles, but they don't want to cooperate because they don't like somebody or they have some vendetta against someone. So everything has to be judged by the motive. And the difference between, and there is a difference between initiated and not initiated. And then he says, disciples should not do anything without asking the spiritual master. And lastly, it says, criticizing and no work, that is the business of inferior men. So these are all statements that Prabhupada has made to correct any whimsicalness and any, let's say, politics entering into ISKCON. So So there is a way to be successful in Krishna consciousness and to develop by the descending process these wonderful qualities of pure devotees, such as the mystic television in the heart. So then Prabhupada continues, he says, the cooperative spirit of working together without argument will lead to success. You will please Prabhupada and Krishna by finishing the service with excellence. The work in devotion is successful because devotees do not have selfish motivations. Their only desire is to receive the mercy of Guru and Krishna, which manifests as more service, better intelligence, protection from Maya, good association of devotees, and constant hearing and chanting of the Mahamantra, Hare Krishna, and Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. Whoa, what a huge statement that is. He says, the only desire of devotees is to receive the mercy of Guru and Krishna, and if one receives that mercy, it's manifest as more service, better intelligence, protection from Maya, good association of devotees, and constant hearing and chanting of the Mahamantra Hare Krishna and Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. Okay, 6 major points that are signs that one has received the mercy of the Lord. Then he says, the devotee is not disturbed or stopped by any obstacle in the material world. Due to his deep personal interest to please Guru and Krishna without any selfish motivation, the devotee works enthusiastically to offer a completed project to the Lord. This spiritual desire and motivation is much greater than Maya, material illusion. Whoa. Now we're getting to really amazing realizations. And that is having a deep personal interest to please Guru and Krishna without any selfish motivation. The devotee works enthusiastically to offer a completed project to the Lord. This spiritual desire and motivation is much greater than Maya, or material illusion. Okay, and that's point 8 in this letter that Prabhupada is writing to Jayapataka Maharaj on December 19th, 1972. Furthermore, it says, therefore, Maya cannot interfere by tricking the devotees into arguing and quarreling. The way to recognize that Maya, or illusion, is acting is when devotees quarrel and argue and thereby abort the project from being completed. Oh, amazing, amazing statement. Therefore, Maya cannot interfere by tricking the devotees with arguing and quarreling. The way to recognize that Maya, illusion, is acting is when devotees quarrel and argue and thereby abort or stop the project from being completed. The way to success in devotional service is by concentration of one's energy and all mental and intellectual facilities on pleasing Guru and Krishna. Wow. That's the success formula. Next, if there is a discrepancy in the service, some non-cooperation, fighting, or if the work is slow or not to the standard, it is to be supposed that the persons in charge are not very much attached to Krishna. Such mediocre leaders will discriminate my engagement is not good, others' engagement is good, like that. They do not know the secret of understanding or surrendering to Krishna. A surrendered devotee sees that everything is part of Krishna's plan, that whatever is meant to be, I am doing that, so let me do it with my full attention in every detail. Let me become absorbed in such service. Never mind what it is, but let all other considerations be forgotten, and only my duty to do the thing best for Krishna. Krishna's pleasure be my exclusion and sole motive. no, I'm sorry. But let all other considerations be forgotten, and only my desire to do the thing best for Krishna's pleasure be my exclusive and sole motive. This is the advanced stage of understanding devotional service or Krishna consciousness. Wow. So, these are all qualifications for receiving the Mystic Television and other, let's say, real scientific advancements to promote devotional service throughout the world. Right? So, this is a different way of learning. This is a different way of being educated. Now, some people say, "Oh, wait a minute, this doesn't make sense." I mean, everybody else is going to school and they're learning science and sociology and philosophy and all these things, and then they're getting good jobs. What kind of job can I get if I sit around doing devotional service and being completely dependent on Krishna? I mean, that sounds like being lazy. No, because devotional service is a 24-hour, 365, 366 on leap years service. It's not 8 to 5. It's not with guaranteed vacations and bonuses if you meet all your deliverables and things like that. It's not like that. This is different. What is it? It's constantly thinking about Krishna and serving the Lord practically in time-sensitive service. So how do we do such a thing? Well, we explained the other day, there is the subordinate Dharma and there's the superlative Dharma. The subordinate Dharma is Varnashram system for gradual elevation, and Transcendental Dharma is pure devotional service rendered to Krishna. So nobody is going to jump right to pure devotional service because we're born with many material desires and many distractions. However, we can be gradually elevated to pure devotional service by accepting several things. One, we accept that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Two, we recognize the absolute importance of having a bona fide spiritual master and spiritual masters, Shiksha and Diksha Gurus. Three, engage as much as possible, according to one's situation, in Krishna conscious activities. Chanting, dancing, feasting, going on Sankirtan, and hearing classes and participating in hearing the classes and doing the homeworks and things like that. Being active in all, let's say, off time when one does not have all these material imperatives. And everybody has off time. At least everyone has at least 4 to 6 hours. Let's assume they're working really hard. They still have 4 to 6 hours of off time, and that's apart from sleeping. So the question is, what do they do in their off time? Well, if they are proactive about using that time in Krishna's service, they will make spiritual progress. And eventually, Krishna, seeing their desire to always be connected to him, he will make it so that they will be able to increase that time and in an incremental way, and eventually they'll have 24 hours a day for devotional service. So it's a gradual process, and we can see that in the life of Prabhupada. When he meets his guru in 1922, he was already married. He always had, I think, 1 or 2 kids. So he was entangled and he was involved in a business, and he was a follower of Gandhi. He was involved, right? And all of a sudden, his guru is like a tsunami, and in the first minute or two, he defeats Prabhupada. Prabhupada was never defeated. He was always a leader in schools and friendships, and he's defeated 1 or 2 minutes by his guru statement, who says, look, you leave this Gandhiism and politics aside, that'll never solve any problem, and it'll go on for all time. You're wasting your time doing that. Just try to be Krishna conscious, and I'm giving you a service right now. You preach in the English-speaking world this Krishna consciousness, then you will please me very much. So Prabhupada was flabbergasted by such a person is so confident about the existence of God and the importance of devotional service. And so from that moment on, he became attached to Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. Eventually, I think it was 11 years later, he was initiated. But right away, he accepted him as his guru. And then Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur leaves this world. But Prabhupada goes through a whole process of being married, getting his kids married, raising his kids, getting them married. And then eventually, in 1959, he takes sannyas. And then 1965, he comes to America with $7. And 1966, he registers ISKCON as a legal nonprofit. And then his preaching becomes gradually more and more effective. And by 1977, he's built up a huge movement all over the world. And then he goes to Krishna. And the movement is going on because of all the organization and all the preaching that Prabhupada has given. So this is amazing. And you can see that Prabhupada was invested with transcendental qualities to be able to do this in such a short period of time and in such an advanced age, from the time he was 70 to when he left his body at 81 or 82. So, what is it that holds people back from attaining these transcendental qualities? Now, these transcendental qualities are something exceptional, and this is explained in the Chaitanya Charitamrita Adilila 522. What time is it now? 7:09. Okay, I'm not going to be able to cover this, but basically, Prabhupada explains in detail what is going on in the spiritual world and how we can attain that spiritual world in this lifetime. So I will cover that. But then there's another thing I want to talk about. What can hold us back from this? And what is the main thing that holds us back from this are the following. The material conception of life, which is the main subject of all schools in America, because they all are based on atheistic humanism as the pedagogy or the system of teaching. So atheistic humanism rejects the existence of supernatural powers or persons, and like the Mayavadis. So basically, the Mayavadis are atheists, so are the atheistic humanists, except they honestly say they're atheistic. The Mayavadis don't claim to be atheists, they claim that they're worshiping God. But because of their speculative way of worshiping, they are effectively atheists. They don't think that God is a person. They believe in energy. So that's what the scientists believe in, energy. And that means that they don't believe, the scientists don't believe that there's a person who is God, and the Mayavadis don't believe that there's a person that's God. So it's basically atheism. There's different levels of it. But the first material conception of life that is prominent is the fact that false conception that I am this body. And the conception leads to myaprata jnana, which means loss of intelligence and becoming convinced that the body should be used and the intelligence and the mind should be used for sense gratification. Right? So that means that people are too materially attached and therefore do not give attention to spiritual life. This is the main defect of this material conception of life and modern civilization. They don't think, they don't have any strong attachment to being attentive to spiritual life. They may go to church. I remember I used to go to church once a week. And the rest of the week, I wasn't thinking about church. I was thinking about, this thing, that thing, so many things, right? But then my auntie, and the only reason I went to church is because my auntie would take me to church. My mother didn't go. My father didn't go. They would go twice or 3 times a year, Christmas and Easter, or if someone dies, or if there's a marriage. Otherwise, they would not go on a regular basis. It's the same thing in Hinduism, right? They go to the temple when there's a death. They go to the temple when there's a marriage. They go to the temple when there's Janmashtami or Ram Navami. The rest of the time, they don't come to the temple. They're too busy doing things. See, so this not being attentive to spiritual life, that's part of the material conception of life. And then some people, they want to, if there is some interest in spiritual life, they want to merge into the supreme spiritual. In other words, they want to merge into Brahman, effulgence, and become a non-entity and not have any suffering anymore. Or they might disbelieve in everything, and they're just angry at all sorts of spirituality. There's a lot of people like that. You see them on Sankirtan. I don't want to have anything to do with this. When 2 weeks ago we were at this festival, I was talking to a man. I said, "Sir, we have some free prasadam here. Free food here today, free lunch, and it's all vegetarian." He said, "I don't want to eat vegetarian food. I want meat." Whoa, they're just angry. As soon as I said vegetarian, I don't want to vegetarian. I want to eat meat. So, and people say, "I don't want to go to church. I hate their church. They did this and they did that." So, some people disbelieve in everything, and they're angry at all sorts of spiritual speculation out of hopelessness, and or they just neglect spiritual life, or they have a fear of a spiritual personal identity forever, or the conception of void that arises from frustration in life. So these are all different conceptions, materialistic conceptions of life that are going on. Then it's all related to I am this body. And then when one thinks I am this body and everything related to this body is mine, then one develops this false ego. And this is my house, this is my land, this is my family, this is my country. It's called aham mameti, I, me, and mine. And this is explained more deeply in the 15th chapter, 5th verse of Bhagavad Gita. Okay, I'll stop right there. Obviously, it's a big subject. I think I have 2 hours to explain it. And I probably won't cover everything, but some of it. So if you want to come listen to it, you have the information. Hari Bol, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Are there any questions? Yes. Gopal Krishna Das.
Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj.
Hari Bol, Prabhu.
My question is, how we are more powerful than the sun?
How do we become more powerful than the sun?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, first of all, there are people that are more powerful than the sun. The name is Surya or Vivaswan. He controls the sun. And he's a jiva like you and me. but he's perfected himself in many ways. He hasn't perfected himself enough to go back to Godhead. That's why he's still in the material world. But he's perfected himself up to the level that he's more powerful than the sun. He controls it every day. He controls the orbiting of the sun and the orbiting of the planets around the sun. So he is an extremely powerful person. And then they have Brahma. Brahma is the secondary subordinate creator of the material world. But Krishna creates the material world and material elements, but Brahma puts together the material elements and makes different bodies and different species. And he's the manager of the whole universe. So he's a jiva like you and me, but he's perfected himself. But he still has some material desires, that is to dominate and to manage. So he's given the position of Brahma, the most powerful and most, let's say, intelligent person in the material universe. He's not equal to Krishna at all, but he's way above us. And then you have the demigods like Indra and Chandra and Varuna. They're all jivas like you and me, but they have become elevated by engaging in devotional service. They still have some mixed desires, but they have been rewarded for the service that they've rendered by having these big positions in the universe. Okay? So because there are jiva souls like you and me who have such power, that's the proof that our soul is more powerful than the sun. Okay? So that means that you could also attain those positions, and even more than that, you can go back to Godhead. You see, and then you have a spiritual body, and you never come back to the material world again. So that's even above the Surya or Vivaswan, Brahma, Indra, and Varuna, and so forth. So if you go back to Godhead, you have your eternal body, spiritual body, and spiritual senses. And you no longer have to eat, sleep, mate, and defend. If you want to, you can eat. If you want to, you can sleep, but you're not obliged to because your soul is eternal. You see? So we don't realize how powerful we are. We can be. And it's all due to modern education and the material conception of life. We've been fooled to think that we can't live beyond 60 or 80 years and we're all going to die. And we don't believe in reincarnation, because therefore after you die there's nothing. That's what they believe. So obviously they've limited their potential so severely that they think that they'll only live to be 60 or 80, then they die, then it's all over. You see? And that's because of modern education. They believe that there's no God. They believe that when you die, everything is over. And they believe that therefore you only have one life and you should use it for sense gratification. So that means they're a complete failure. But if what your potential is, then you'll strive for it. And the way to attain that higher and higher states of being is through devotional service. That's what Vivaswan has done. That's what Brahma has done. And then you can go beyond them to the spiritual world. Again, by devotional service and following the instructions of bona fide gurus. You can go back to Godhead. That's even higher than Vivaswan and Brahma. So this is who we actually are. But if you become fooled by modern education, you think, no, I only lived 68 years, I'm going to die, then it's all over. That's crazy. And the whole time you waste your life eating, sleeping, mating, and defending like an animal. That's the answer. Okay? Modern education is the biggest demon today. It's ruining people's lives. Hare Krishna. That was a good question. You're going to chant? Good. Help him with that.
Shri Guru Charana Padma Kevala Bhakati Sadma
Shri Guru Charana Padma Kevala Bhakati Sadma
Vando Muni Savadana Te
Vando Mui Savadana Mate
Jahara Prasade Pa Eva Patoriya Jai
Janara Prasade Bhai Eva Vatoriya Jai
Krishna Prapti Hoy Jaha Ho Te
Krishna Prapti Oya Oite
Guru Mokha Padma Vakya Chitete Koriya Kya
Shri Guru
Arana Kori Ho Mane Asha
Arana Koriya Maneya Saha
Shri Guru Charane Rati Eise Utama Gati
Shri Guru Charane Rati Himavatori
Jai Prasade Puje Sarva Sha
Ye Prasade Pure Sarva Asa
Chakshudan Dilo Jai Janme Janme Prabhu Sai
Chaksudan Dila Jai Janme Janme Prabhu Se
Divignan Hriday Prokasito
Divya de Prakasito
Prema Bhakti Jaha Hoite Avidya Vinasa Jate
Prema Bhakti Jaha Hoite Avidya Vinasa Jate
Idi Jai Jahara Charito
Vedega Janara Charito
Shri Guru Karuna Sindhu Adama Janara Bandhu
Shri Guru Karuna Sindhu Adana Janara Bandhu
Hokenath Lokera Jivana
Hokenath Lokera Jivana
Ha ha Prabhu Koro Doya Deha More Pada Jaya
Aha Devayaskasakti Bhuvana.
Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada.
Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada.
Namah Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine.
Prestaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine.
Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Bharatyadi Shatarine.
Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Vishesha Sunyavadi Paskatyadi Satarine.
Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda.
Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada.
Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Jai Om Vishnupad, Paramahansa Parajagachasta Tarasatara Shri Shimad, His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Goswami Maharaj, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Anantakoti Vaishnavindi Ki Jai, Namacharya Siddhardas Thakur Ki Jai, Prem Sikaho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shidvaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai, Shri Radha Krishna Gopinath Sam Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhana Ki Jai, Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai, Shri Mayapura Dham Ki Jai, Shri Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai, Tulasi Devi Ki Jai, Bhakti Devi Ki Jai, Ganga Maya Ki Jai, Samuna Maya Ki Jai, Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai, Nitai Gaura Premanandi. All glories to Samudra, all glories to Samudra. All glories to Subordinate. All glories to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Patita Pavana Ki Jai. Gaura Premanandi. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya. Haribo, Haribo. The lotus feet of our spiritual master, the only way by which we can attain the pure devotional service. I bow down to his lotus feet in great awe and reverence. By his grace, one can cross the ocean of material suffering and obtain the mercy of Krishna. My only wish is to have my consciousness purified by the words emanating from his lotus mouth. Attachment to his lotus feet is a perfection that fulfills all desires. He opens my darkened eyes and fills my heart with transcendental knowledge. He is my Lord, birth after birth. From him, ecstatic prema emanates. By him, ignorance is destroyed. The Vedic scriptures sing of his character. Our spiritual master, the ocean of mercy, the friend of the poor, and